From a distance, I saw my boyfriend kissing another girl. When I got home, I broke down sobbing and immediately texted him to break up. He called right back, let out a cold laugh, and said, "If you've got the guts, say that to my face." "Let's break up, Ethan," I typed with trembling fingers, sniffled, and wiped away the tear that had fallen onto my phone screen. The moment I hit send, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I hugged my knees and cried even harder. I saw him kiss someone else with my own eyes, but I just didn't have the courage to walk over and confront them. I was scared. Ethan is 6 feet 2 inches, and if he lost his temper, what if he tossed me aside like nothing? I mean, he's never laid a hand on me, but that's how things usually play out on TV, right? Why did I fall for another jerk? The more I thought about it, the more wronged I felt. My crying only grew more intense. Suddenly, my phone lit up. I wiped my tears and picked it up. Ethan didn't reply to the message. He just called. I took a moment to steady my voice before answering. "What's this about?" His tone was completely flat. I tried to sound firm, mustering up all the confidence I had. "You cheated on me. I want to break up." "What's so unclear about that?" He sounded genuinely surprised, as if he couldn't believe it. That gave me a little confidence boost. "I saw everything," I said. "Right outside your dorm. You kissed another girl." "What nonsense are you talking about?" he snapped. "You're seriously going to deny it?" I shouted, furious. "We're done. You're trash." He let out another cold laugh. "If you really mean that, come say it to my face." Before I could even respond, he hung up. His voice may have sounded calm, but I could still feel the chill beneath it. And sure enough, not even 30 minutes later, I heard the front door unlock. It was Ethan. Of course he knew the code to my apartment. He didn't say a word, just walked in with a blank expression and headed straight for the couch. I curled up in the corner of the sofa, hugging a pillow tight. "What are you doing here?" My voice was barely above a whisper. "Here to hear why you just got dumped?" He slouched onto the couch across from me, his voice as flat as before. I buried half my face into the pillow and mumbled, "I already told you everything." Ethan stared at me for 2 seconds. "When exactly did you see me kiss someone?" I replayed the scene in my head. The uneasiness came rushing back. "Around 4 o'clock, I muttered. He chuckled softly and tossed his phone onto the coffee table. The screen lit up with a video of some guys playing basketball, complete with timestamp. At 4 p.m., I was still on the court. "You sure you didn't see a ghost?" I bit my lip. "No, I clearly remember what I saw today." Back then, all I saw was a figure from behind. But the build, the height, even the jacket, it was all the same. Turned out, it was my roommate. Jessica borrowed my jacket today for her date. When Ethan calmly explained it like that, my emotional storm suddenly cleared up. But I still stubbornly defended myself. "Lena said it too. The back looked just like you. Mistaking you for someone else isn't that unreasonable." Ethan didn't respond. He simply stood up and walked toward me, stopping right beside the sofa. I instinctively tensed up, hugging the pillow tighter as I looked up at him warily. "What are you trying to do?" The next second, he lifted me right off the couch and stood me up on it. My arms reflexively wrapped around his neck. "You didn't even notice he's half a head shorter than me?" he teased. "Maybe I did," I muttered, looking down at him, then paused to think. "You want to get smacked?" He raised an eyebrow with a crooked grin. I shot back instinctively. "You trying to commit domestic violence?" He lazily let out a Then, his hand gave my lower back a light pat. Not hard, but enough to make my whole face burn red. "Pervert!" I glared at him. But he looked like he was in a much better mood. He smoothly sat down, pulling me to sit on his lap, face to face. "Still planning to break up with me?" he asked with a mischievous smile. I was so embarrassed I wanted to disappear, burying my face into the crook of his neck without saying a word. A low chuckle vibrated in my ear, and then he nibbled it lightly. "You only dare throw tantrums like this with me, right?" That was when Zach Mason showed up. He had just returned from overseas. I didn't even know until he was suddenly standing right in front of me. "Hey," he smiled. "Long time no see?" He still looked just as clean-cut and charming as ever. But who would have guessed the reason I broke up with Zach was because I caught him cheating with a freshman girl. I saw it with my own eyes, in a hotel room. He was tangled up in bed with her, cigarette in mouth, leaning lazily against the headboard, staring straight at me without the slightest hint of guilt. "So what, Kylie?" he said calmly. "You wouldn't let me touch you. I've got needs too, you know." After we broke up, he openly flaunted his new relationship. He was already in his senior year at New York University, had no more classes left, and spent all his time traveling with his new girlfriend. Come to think of it, it's been half a year since I last saw him. "What's up?" I asked. Hearing him say my name so familiarly instantly triggered a wave of disgust. "You free this afternoon? Let's grab lunch together," he offered. I took a step back and shook my head. "I'm not." "You're still mad at me, huh?" He chuckled, but his eyes darkened just a bit. "Yeah, I messed up, but I've always only liked you." I nearly lost my cool right there, but Zach Mason just kept going, like he always did. "So, can you forgive me now?" Zach asked with a grin, reaching out to hug me. Before I could even dodge, a familiar voice cut through from behind. "Hey man, think you've got the wrong girl." Ethan walked over slowly, his eyes glancing at Zach's outstretched arm. Zach instinctively pulled his hand back, clearly irritated. "Who the hell are you?" Finally, I had the chance to speak up. I turned to him, eyes steady. "My boyfriend." Zach clenched his jaw, then let out a mocking laugh. "Kylie, really? It's only been a few months, and you're already seeing someone new? What? Loneliness got too hard to handle?" Immediately, I could feel the temperature around Ethan drop. I grabbed his hand quickly, afraid he might snap. I remembered what happened the last time someone tried provoking this so-called prince. That guy was just another spoiled brat riding on his daddy's money. Ethan revved his sports car right at him, stopping barely a foot away from crashing into him. The dude literally collapsed in fear and pissed himself. "It's okay, Ethan," I whispered, tugging gently at his sleeve, looking up at him. Ethan looked at me for a moment, then finally stopped in his tracks. I stepped in front of him, shielding him from Zach. I looked Zach dead in the eyes, calm and collected. "You know, Zach Mason, I'm genuinely curious." I gritted my teeth. "Back then, when you were howling like some rabid dog, begging for sex, did you ever imagine you'd come back later using this pathetic logic about feelings and true love?" Zach's face flushed red with anger, and he took a step forward. But Ethan immediately pulled me behind him, standing protectively in front of me. He stared down at Zach coldly. "I'll only say this once. Stay away from Kylie." Zach knew he was in the wrong. In the end, he let out a frustrated snort and turned to leave. "You were afraid I'd hit him?" Ethan whispered as he backed me into a tree. His dark eyes stared deeply into mine. "Still not over him? Because he was your first love?" I let out a small sigh and looped my arms around his neck. "What's there to miss? He's not taller than you, not better looking, and definitely not richer." Just moments ago, he was all tense and ready to explode. But now, Ethan softened, clearly pleased. "I missed you, you idiot," he murmured. "You're really shallow, Kylie," he added with a smile. I nodded without hesitation. "Totally." Ethan leaned in, his voice slow and deep. "Then I'll make sure you experience something deeper, from now on." "Huh?" I blinked, confused. He leaned close to my ear, his breath warm as he chuckled softly. "Once we get our marriage license, I'll take you to lose your virginity," Ethan murmured with a smirk. "Then you'll understand." I instantly snapped out of it and pinched his arm hard, glaring at him. "You jerk! Your brain is full of garbage." I tried to push him off and escape, but he easily pinned me back against the tree. With one hand, Ethan tilted my chin up and leaned in to kiss me. I clenched my jaw tight, refusing to part my lips. But he wasn't in a rush. He kissed me gently again and again, teasingly patient. Then, his hand slid from the back of my neck to the front, lightly squeezing my earlobe. I flinched involuntarily. My lips relaxed for a split second, and he seized the moment to slip inside. Only when I began to run out of breath did he finally pull away a little, brushing another kiss onto the corner of my lips as he chuckled softly. "You still haven't figured out how to breathe when kissing?" I silently asked myself the same question. How could we have been together so long, and yet every time he kissed me, my face still turned bright red like a tomato? I'd never seen Ethan look this intense before. So fierce, so raw, I briefly thought. If he'd had a knife in hand, he might have actually killed Zach Mason. That night was a club reunion. Zach showed up as the former president. Rarely did he attend anything anymore. He didn't say a single word to me the entire evening, like I was a total stranger. I was honestly grateful for that. But toward the end, when most people had left, Zach started to get drunk. On the way out, taking advantage of the late hour and empty street, he suddenly grabbed my arm. "I can't walk anymore," he slurred. "Let's get a room at that hotel over there." I struggled to pull my wrist free, but his grip only tightened. "Come on, Kylie," he said, eyes glassy and breath reeking of alcohol. "Didn't you already sleep with Ethan? What are you pretending for? We used to be lovers, so what if we do it once more?" His hand clamped down so hard it burned my wrist. He yanked me another step forward. "Zach Mason, snap out of it and let me go." But he acted like he didn't hear me, dragging me toward the hotel entrance. Just then, I spotted Ethan nearby with a few friends. They must have been out for drinks too. I didn't know if he'd gone home yet. I tried to call him, but my hands were pinned. Panic took over. I was near tears, glancing around desperately. And then I saw Ethan standing not far off. The moment our eyes met, my heart instantly steadied. He must have had some drinks too. That's probably why he was out so late. But the second he saw what was happening, his expression darkened. He picked up a nearby chair without hesitation and stormed toward us. Without saying a word, Ethan swung the chair hard, crashing it into Zach's back. Zach, already wobbly from alcohol, collapsed face first onto the pavement. "I warned you, didn't I?" Ethan said coldly. "Told you to stay the hell away from her." Ethan's voice was icy cold, but disturbingly calm. That was what made it so terrifying. Zach Mason lay on the ground, groaning in pain, but still couldn't keep his mouth shut. He muttered sarcastic jabs, clearly trying to provoke Ethan even more. Squinting, Zach let out a crooked laugh. "Your girlfriend, please. When I kissed her, who knows where the hell you were?" Ethan said nothing. He simply picked up an empty liquor bottle nearby and smashed it straight across Zach's head. "Tonight, I'll make sure you never forget this," he said coldly, then picked up the same chair from earlier and advanced once more. Anyone who knew Ethan knew. The calmer he looked, the more dangerous he became. Blood started trickling down the side of Zach's head. I broke out in a cold sweat. Ethan didn't even flinch. He kept walking forward, unfazed. It wasn't until I screamed his name, loudly, that his roommate snapped out of it and rushed over to grab him. No one noticed that, hidden in the shadows nearby, someone had been recording the whole thing. Zach scrambled to his feet and staggered a few steps away, fearfully backing off now that Ethan was being held back. Covering his bloody nose, he shouted in panic. Ethan just let out a low, cold laugh, glancing down at him without a hint of fear. But I didn't want things to escalate any further. I didn't want this to go on Ethan's record. I straightened my clothes and stepped forward. I was just about to tell Zach, "Go ahead and call the cops. I'll tell them exactly how you tried to assault me." But then the sharp wail of police sirens rang out from nearby, cutting me off mid-sentence. We had no idea who called them, but before we knew it, everyone was brought down to the station. I hadn't even gotten close to Zach yet when a group of people stepped out of the elevator, and my eyes widened in disbelief. Just then, the deputy chief of police for the city had arrived for a surprise inspection. The station chief and other officers all hurried out to greet him. But when the deputy's eyes swept across the room and landed on Ethan and me, he paused mid-step, and then, with a slight frown, changed direction and walked straight toward us. "You again, kid?" he said. "Always getting into trouble, huh?" Every head in the room snapped to look at Ethan, but Ethan just smiled easily. "Uncle Drew?" he greeted casually. "What a coincidence. You here for a crime too?" Gasps and awkward silence spread across the room. That wasn't something you could just say to the deputy chief. I had met Uncle Drew once before, during a dinner with Ethan. He was dressed in plain clothes then, and Ethan had introduced him simply as a close uncle. Apparently, he was an old friend of Ethan's father. For some reason, he and Ethan got along disturbingly well, like chaos loved company. True to form, Uncle Drew didn't get angry. He just let out a dry chuckle. "Still mouthing off even when you're at the precinct, huh?" But even so, he didn't plead Ethan's case or pull any strings for him. But no one there was stupid, especially after I'd told Zach Mason clearly, if he reported anything to the cops, I'd reveal every detail of how he tried to assault me. In the end, the one who made the biggest scene was the first to back down. He agreed to settle things privately. Once we were released from the station, only Ethan and I were left. Zach must have been scared Ethan would come after him again, so the moment he got out, he vanished. At 2 a.m., Ethan and I walked side by side along an empty street. So quiet, we could hear the wind rustling through the trees. Without a word, Ethan took off his jacket and draped it over my shoulders. Then, he gently took my hand and finally asked in a low voice, "Were you scared back there?" I nodded slightly. "A little." "There won't ever be another moment like that again, Kylie," he said. "Don't be afraid of me." I looked up at the 6'2" guy standing before me. He always seemed like this fierce, growling watchdog. But now he looked downcast, almost pitiful. I stopped walking and stepped up onto the curb to match his height. Lifting his face with both hands, I spoke slowly and clearly. "You hit someone tonight." He pressed his lips together, saying nothing. "I know you did it for me," I continued, "but I was only scared you'd end up with a record at the station because of a guy like him. Zach Mason isn't worth it, not even a little." "You understand that, right, baby?" I added, gently shaking his head side to side. "So please, don't do that again, okay? Promise me, Ethan." He looked down, nodded once, and pulled me into a tight hug. Yeah, I promise this was the same Ethan who had been cold and arrogant back at the police station, a guy who didn't seem afraid of anyone. Yet here he was now, bowing his head so carefully, just because he didn't want me to be scared of him. My heart softened immediately. I nestled into his chest, rubbing my cheek against him like a sleepy kitten. In the hush of the night, something tender settled between us, and suddenly, I remembered what Zach Mason had spat earlier. When I kissed her, "Who knows where the hell you were?" I froze. Ethan had never brought it up. He hadn't shown any signs of being bothered, but I didn't want him to have to silently swallow things like that anymore. I looked up from his arms and locked eyes with him. Zach was just running his mouth tonight. "Don't take any of it seriously," I said. "I was with him for less than 2 months. The worst he ever did," I admitted, "was hug me." Once Ethan let out a soft chuckle the moment he heard that. He raised his hand and gently traced my lips with his thumb, raising an eyebrow. Trying to make me feel better? I blushed, blinked a few times, and then nodded honestly. "Yeah, I am. Honestly, I don't really care about the past anymore. No matter what happened in the past, it doesn't matter, because the person I care about is you. Got it?" Ethan's eyes were serious, so serious it was unmistakable. But even if he said he didn't care, there's no way he wasn't jealous. So I decided to tease him a little. "Oh, really?" I tilted my head, giving him a playful smile. "Then who was it that turned completely stone-faced after hearing what Zach said?" I hadn't even finished the sentence when Ethan suddenly reached behind my neck, pulled me in, and kissed me hard. The kiss was fierce. In the quiet of the night, the sounds of our lips and breaths were almost embarrassingly loud. I started to run out of air. I had no choice but to push against his chest a few times before he finally let me go. Ethan buried his face into the crook of my neck. He didn't say anything at first. A long moment passed. Then, in that familiar grumpy tone of his, he finally spoke. "I didn't even smoke the past few days, just because I wanted to kiss you." He sounded annoyed, but I could hear the vulnerability in it. Damn it, it's not like I have any real experience either. I just didn't want your first kiss to be uncomfortable. I suddenly remembered that kiss. It had been both our firsts. That day, the space between us slowly disappeared. Our breaths mixed, our bodies leaned closer, and Ethan had no idea what he was doing. Our first kiss was clumsy, unpolished, but it was sweet, so sweet. But now, the video of Ethan hitting Zach was quietly leaked onto the university's social forum. At first, I was just worried for Ethan, afraid people would misunderstand him and lash out without knowing the full story. But when I actually tapped the video, I realized something far worse. Whoever posted it, intentionally or not, had pointed the spotlight at me. The title was blatantly clear: "Ex-boyfriend and current boyfriend fight over her. Girl plays two men to boost her ego." The gossip had already made its way back to campus. I got a call from an unknown number. I picked up and heard Zach's voice on the other end. "Who?" I asked. He dragged out his tone, sounding like he was carefully choosing his words. "She's the one Ethan can never say no to." I didn't even bother responding. Why would I believe a guy who clearly had it out for me, just to start doubting Ethan? If I did that, I'd have to be completely out of my mind. My reaction, as expected, didn't surprise Zach in the least. Zach let out a quiet laugh. "The whole campus is buzzing with nasty rumors about you now. Has Ethan called you yet? Sent even a single message?" I answered coldly. "My boyfriend doesn't need your concern. What you should be doing is thinking of a clear explanation, fast, before I get my hands on surveillance footage to prove I'm innocent. This is the last time I'll say it. Don't contact me again." I'd spent so much time with Ethan that even the way I spoke had started to sound like him. With that, I hung up. Then I called Ethan myself. As I'd feared, no answer. I gripped my phone tightly, murmuring to myself. That's when I got another call, from an unknown number. I answered. "Hello? This is Dana Sutcliffe." She asked to meet at the swimming pool near campus. When I arrived, the entire pool was empty, just her. That's when I realized she'd rented the place out. She surfaced from the water and pulled her goggles up. "Hey," she said, smiling sweetly. "Did you need something?" I pressed my lips together, staring at her, uninterested in pretending her polite tone was anything but fake. She wasn't fazed by my bluntness. Her smile never faded. She just lazily swam in circles, clearly in no rush to get out of the water. "I just want to know," she said, tilting her head curiously. "How much do you love Ethan?" She asked it like it was genuine curiosity. Her eyes held no trace of challenge or hostility. I didn't owe her an answer. The rumors at school had already exhausted me. I had no energy left to engage with a meaningless rival. And I say meaningless because not for 1 second had I ever doubted Ethan. Dana shrugged. "It's fine. I don't really care. Either way, no one on this earth will ever love him more than I do." With that, she swam to the edge of the pool, grabbed the ledge, and pulled herself out. Then she turned her back to me, and that's when I saw it. Across her bare back, exposed by her swimsuit, was a large patch of burn scars, jagged, discolored, and uneven. They were ugly, rough, and in stark contrast to the otherwise flawless skin surrounding them. I stared, speechless. My throat tightened. Dana Sutcliffe turned back around. When she saw the look on my face, she didn't seem the least bit surprised. Terrifying, isn't it? She said, casually grabbing a towel and draping it over her shoulders. I stood silently, staring at her. She looked me straight in the eyes and slowly walked closer. These are the marks I got from saving Ethan's life 9 years ago, she said. I didn't even get a thank you. But now, you're afraid of them, aren't you? She leaned in, her voice chillingly calm. They're proof of my love for him. Word by word, her tone sharpened. I was willing to die for him. I stared into her dark, hollow eyes, and for the first time, I saw something twisted, something unhinged. She was insane. I instinctively stepped back. Her smile widened, more and more, until it was unnervingly large. But that smile carried a biting coldness. So tell me, she whispered, what right do you have to call yourself Ethan's girlfriend? A shiver crawled down my spine. I didn't know why, but suddenly I wanted nothing more than to run. Far, far away. The next second, Dana shoved me, hard. Caught completely off guard, I fell straight into the pool. I thrashed wildly in the water, panicked, arms and legs flailing. Oh, don't bother struggling, her voice echoed. I already had them turn off the cameras. Now show me. If you love Ethan more than I do, then I'll step aside and let you be with him. Fair? When I fell in, I didn't realize where I had landed. It wasn't until the water kept pouring over my head again and again that I realized this was the deep end. Kylie. I thought I heard Ethan's voice, muffled and far away. A few seconds later, strong arms pulled me up, breaking the surface. Ethan. He held on to me tight, swimming toward the edge of the pool. I sat on the bench, drenched and trembling, coughing uncontrollably. Ethan, Dana called softly, voice tinged with uncertainty. But Ethan didn't even look at her. His focus was solely on me, gently patting my back. Are you okay? He asked, brows furrowed, voice low. I nodded faintly, though the fear hadn't left my chest. My eyes burned red, tears brimming, and I bit my lip to hold them in. Because if I said even one word now, I would burst into sobs. That ridiculous part of me, the part that always cried too easily, decided to show up right at this moment. Just because I saw him. Ethan pulled me into his arms. One hand gently stroked the back of my neck. Don't be scared, he whispered. It's over now. I've got you. Even though we both knew someone else was still standing there. I felt awkward holding him for too long. Just a moment later, I gently pushed Ethan away and sat up on my own. Are you still feeling unwell? Ethan crouched in front of me and wrapped a towel around my shoulders. I shook my head. Not really. I didn't swallow too much water. Good thing you showed up in time. He nodded and helped me to my feet, leading me away without so much as glancing back at Dana Sutcliffe. Ethan! Dana suddenly called out behind us, her voice rising. You're mad at me because of some outsider? I clenched my jaw. Who was she calling an outsider? Who? Ethan stopped in his tracks. He slowly turned around, eyes narrowing as he looked at her. His voice was icy, devoid of emotion. I've tolerated you until now, he said, and the only reason for that is the fire from back then. Then his lips curled into a cold, thin smile. But there's something I haven't been able to stop thinking about these past few days. My office was completely fine, so how the hell did it suddenly catch fire? Dana's face turned visibly pale. What are you trying to say? She stammered. But Ethan just gave a quiet, humorless laugh. He didn't answer. He simply held my hand tighter and turned away, walking off decisively. As we neared the exit of the pool, I looked back. Dana was still standing there, frozen in place. Ethan walked me all the way back to my dorm. His hand never let go of mine, but he didn't say a word the entire time. When we reached the building, he finally stopped. Go on up, he said. Take a hot shower and change into dry clothes. Then he let go of my hand. I'll go grab some cold medicine, just in case you catch a chill. I looked at him for a few seconds. I didn't know why, but something about him felt off. I couldn't put it into words, but something wasn't right. Still, I didn't ask. I just nodded obediently. After I showered and blow-dried my hair, Ethan still hadn't called. Out of habit, I opened the university forum and noticed something strange. The video was gone. Completely. Not even a trace left. Ethan's major is computer science. That was the first thought that came to mind. I walked to the shared lounge and just by chance glanced out the window. Right then, I saw him. Ethan was standing outside my building, a cigarette resting between his fingers. It looked like he'd been standing there for a long time. His tall, lean figure was silent, somehow carrying a kind of heaviness that words couldn't describe. Without even thinking, I kicked off my slippers and dashed down the stairs, straight to him. When Ethan saw me running toward him, he immediately flicked away his cigarette. "You showered?" he asked softly. I nodded. Without a word, he wrapped his arms around me and lifted me up, placing me gently on the stone steps next to him, so we were eye level. Then he leaned in, hugging me tight. His cheek brushed against my neck, like a big dog trying to nuzzle its way into my arms. Half my face was still buried in his shoulder. I took in a quiet breath. That faint smell of tobacco I hadn't noticed in a while. It was back on him again. It had been so long since I last smelled it. Ethan had barely smoked at all since we started dating, and even when he did, it was always behind my back, never in front of me. "Ethan," I called gently. "What's wrong?" He paused, then slowly released me. His deep, dark eyes locked onto mine, a gaze full of emotion. It said everything he couldn't put into words. An apology for dragging me into this whole mess with Dana, for all the times she used the fact that she saved his life to guilt him, to manipulate him, to stop him from ever getting mad, from ever pushing back. I let out a soft sigh. Of course. He was blaming himself for not being able to protect me, for being my boyfriend and yet unable to stand up for me when I needed it most. His voice dropped low, gentle, almost coaxing. "You don't have to be afraid anymore," he murmured. "She won't dare bother you again." I blinked slowly. Did he just call me? That was the first time Ethan had ever called me baby like that. I tugged lightly on his sleeve, pulling him closer. "It's not like I can't forgive you," I teased softly. "One kiss, and I'll let it go." His Adam's apple moved slightly. His eyes darkened. "You sure one kiss is enough?" he asked, voice low and unreadable. My cheeks instantly flared with heat. I stared at him, completely flustered, unable to answer. He leaned in slowly and kissed my cheek, soft and warm, then pulled back just enough to look at me. "Here?" he asked. I was blushing so hard I couldn't even speak. Then he lowered his head and kissed the tip of my nose. "Or maybe here," he whispered. My entire face burned. My neck froze. Before I could think, I leaned forward, grabbed his collar, and kissed the corner of his lips. I mumbled under my breath, "Here!" Ethan's voice dropped another octave, hoarse and deep. "Got it." He reached out and gently lifted my chin. He leaned down and kissed me. This kiss was completely different from before. Slow, gentle, and lingering for a long time. It was clear. He was using it to apologize. After that, we stayed in each other's arms for a long time. Ethan finally told me the reason he had gone completely silent the past few days. Turns out, Dana Sutcliffe had taken a medical leave from school due to post-trauma complications from the fire years ago. As soon as she was discharged, Ethan's mom forced him to spend a few days with her. While he was sleeping, his mom even had someone take his phone and keep it from him. But Ethan wasn't a kid anymore. After barely a day and a half, he found a way to sneak out, just to come look for me. We stayed out until evening before Ethan finally let me head back to the dorms. "Kylie," he said, "remember to make yourself a cup of this when you get back." He handed me a small plastic bag. Inside was a packet of 999 cold medicine. I stared at him, wide-eyed. Didn't say anything, didn't take it. "What?" he asked. I pouted slightly, acting like I was upset. "It's hi, not Kylie." Ethan laughed softly. He stepped closer, gently brushing the tip of his nose against mine. Then he looked straight into my eyes and whispered, Hi. His breath warmed my lips, and just like always, my face flushed red, completely out of control. Dana Sutcliffe was, without a doubt, the most disturbingly twisted person I'd ever met in my 20-something years of life. There was no second place. She might have been willing to die for Ethan, but she was also the kind of person who would use Ethan's life as a bargaining chip just to stay by his side. That year, Ethan's office suddenly caught fire, and somehow, coincidentally, the lock on the door that day happened to malfunction. He and Dana were both inside, visiting the place when it happened. They got trapped. The flames grew rapidly. Ethan grabbed a golf club and started smashing at the door lock, unaware of the danger behind him. A burning bookshelf had begun to tip, ready to fall at any moment.